I'm here, Sam. I need 30 seconds. 1 second, sorry.
Okay. So when Leah comes back, I'm going to go ahead and start letting the nice people in, and then we're going to get started.
Hey, coworkers, how are y'all?
Doing
Good
great.
evening.
Excited.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for agreeing to do this class. Let me take my ID off. All right, Sam, I'm ready. Chandra, you coming on camera? Oh, are we already recording? Oh, geez.
Hey, everyone, we're just going to let a few more people in, and then we're going to go ahead and get started.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hello.
good afternoon. Good evening.
Greetings.
Hello.
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 All right, Leah, it's 6:03 if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Happy to do so. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Leah LaRue, and I'm the Director of Neighborhood Planning for the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning. And I am very, very happy to have all of you here with us tonight for our NPU University class. This is a part of our planning track, P1011. If you are enrolled in our Citizen Planner Certificate program, you'll need the course ID number. It is P1011. City Built for the Future, Climate Action in Atlanta. I am really, really happy to have with us tonight a couple of my colleagues. I see, well, several of my colleagues, a couple of folks from my team. I see Samantha Terry with us, who is the NPU University Registrar and Program Coordinator Senior for Training and Education.
Evening, y'all.
And I think I see Tony. He disappeared from my screen, but Tony McNeil is our Program Coordinator Senior for Outreach and Engagement Initiatives. Tony?
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you once again for joining us tonight. I want to go over some of our classroom rules. Before I do that, I often forget to say this, so I'm going to remember to say it this time because my internet was out last night, so I'm reminded. But we are still, even 4 years into this pandemic, we are still subject to technology, probably more so now than ever before, but we are certainly subject to technology, and sometimes connections go out. If an instructor loses their connection, please be patient with us while we wait for others to jump in and kind of carry the baton. Of course, I will get into our rules real quickly and then we'll begin our instruction. Please keep your microphone muted at all times. This helps us to cut back on background noise and feedback and other interruptions to the microphone. If you plan to take notes, this is a very good time to grab a pen and paper to keep notes. And you can also feel free to grab a snack right now. In our in-person classes, we do offer snacks and whatnot, but for our online classes, we cannot give you a snack. So if you need a snack, please do take a quick moment to run and grab something before we begin instruction. Also, please make sure you keep your camera turned on if you are taking this class for course credit. If you are not enrolled in the CPC program or you don't need credit for any other reason, you're not required to turn your camera on. We do appreciate if you're able to do so. We appreciate having cameras on. It makes for a much better and more personal instruction experience. But if you can't, it's understood as long as you don't need credit for this class. If you would like to ask a question during Q&A, please raise your hand to get in the queue, and I'll show you how to do that momentarily. And last but not least, our most important rule is that all questions must be relevant to course content. If the instructors did not instruct on that topic, then it is not relevant to this course content. We will provide contact information at the end of the class. So if you have additional questions that are not appropriate for this environment, you can certainly direct your questions to the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, who'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have that are not relevant to course content. But if you raise your hand to ask a question, please make sure your question ends in a question mark and is a question and not commentary. And please make sure that it is relevant to course content. At the end of the class, you will get the, Sam, go back one for me, please. At the end of the class, you will get the presentation that is utilized in any course materials. You'll receive that via email. So I'm telling those that are here right now at 6:07 p.m., if you see someone come into the chat and ask if they're going to get a copy of the presentation, you know that they were not here on time. If you ask that question, you weren't here on time. But yes, you will get a copy of the presentation at the end of the class. If you would like to raise your hand to get into the queue, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a button that says reactions. If you click on that button, you'll see a pop-up that then says raise hand at the bottom of that pop-up box. If you'd like to go ahead and practice, if you haven't done it in a while, or you have a new version of Zoom and you need to try it out, feel free to test drive it. We'll go ahead and lower your hand in just a moment. But once again, to raise your hand, you'll click on the button that says reactions. At the bottom of the pop-up, you'll see a button that says raise hand, and that is how you enter the queue. You'll be called in order. And again, please make sure that your questions are relevant to course content. All right, so without further ado, I am super excited to introduce to you one of my colleagues from the city of Atlanta. She is the city's Chief Sustainability Officer. And I will tell you, I think it's been about a year, if not more, when she first mentioned to me that she wanted to teach this class. We had already completed our course work for our course assignments, rather, for 2023 course offerings for 2023. And she was very patient in waiting for our 2024 course catalog. We are now into 2024. And without further ado, I'm introducing to you the City of Atlanta's Chief Sustainability Officer, Chandra Farley. Thank you so much for being here, Chandra.
Thank you so much, Leah, and thank you so much to the NPU University team. Yes, super excited. And actually, even before I was at the city, I may have sent a couple of Gmails to this team about when are we going to do something on sustainability with NPU University? And that was maybe back when we kicked off our Clean Energy Advisory Board, which we will talk about. So I am super thrilled to be here tonight. And again, thank you to the NPU University team. Thank you to my team. And thank you to everyone that has registered and showed up tonight. We're super excited to be here and looking forward to talking to everyone about what our office does. I think, even me and probably many here have been involved with various iterations of sustainability and resilience offices at the city of Atlanta. So we're going to talk about what we're up to as a city, as the local government, and we'll also be weaving in ways as how that is relevant to our residents and your ability to take action because we can't meet all of these ambitious goals and build a greater quality of life in the city of Atlanta without doing it together. So looking forward to this evening very much. And so we are super official with our course name and City Built for the Future. And as we talk about City Built for the Future, I know many of you have been on many courses and also keep up with what's going on at City Hall, many particular NPU leaders. So the mayor's agenda, Mayor Andre Dickens' agenda, One Safe City, One Bright Future, and under that there are 4 pillars. Sustainability and resilience officially falls under the City Built for the Future pillar. However, we see our work as critical across all 4 of these pillars. Efficient and effective local government, one safe city, and a city of opportunity for all. And we can keep going, Michelle. And now I'm going to turn it over to J.O. Liu, who is our Director of Urban Ag and Food Systems.
Greetings, everyone. Give thanks for that, Chandra. So when we do this grounding and acknowledgement, let's try something different today. So if you're able to, if you're in a comfortable place, you're not driving or riding a bike or doing something like that, close your eyes. But this grounding and acknowledgement is basically, as we talk about sustainability and resilience and a city built for the future, we want to make sure that we're inclusive and acknowledging, things of the past that have gotten us here. So just close your eyes if you're able to, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but we definitely think about in our grounding and acknowledgement, the land, the territories, practices, and cultures. We definitely want to acknowledge and ground ourselves in the traditions and the history of Indigenous peoples, First Nations and Muskogee Creek people. Also, of course, people of the African diaspora who were brought here unjustly, and those who have been here before all of that and after that. And then, of course, our Latinx communities, additional countless migrants and immigrants. We want to make sure we uplift all that continue to show up, show out, represent, and create just, equitable, inclusive, and anti-racist communities and practices for all of our benefit here in Atlanta and beyond. Of course, we want to give respect and gratitude and support to all humankind, living beings, in the intersecting, overlapping social identities and factors. Some of those could be gender, identity, caste, sexual orientation, race, class, religion, disability, physical appearances, and height. No one is free until we are all free. That is something that has been articulated by many people, Fannie Lou Hamer, Emma Lazarus, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as well. So that's our grounding and acknowledgement. For those of y'all, we are also connected to the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So there's our moment to kick off that. Thank you.
Thank you, J.O. Really appreciate you grounding us today, and definitely directly related to our conversation. So I'm going to take us through a course overview, what we're going to talk about tonight, and kick it off with some grounding in what our office is and what we do. So tonight we're going to focus on the fundamentals. What is sustainability? What is resilience? We hear these words all the time. There are over 300 definitions for sustainability. We're going to talk about how we frame it here at City of Atlanta for our work. We're going to talk about our clean energy plan, our food access goals. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk about tools and resources that we can all use to take action on climate change. We're We're going to have a call to action on how to get involved. And then we're going to dig into some Q&A. We definitely want to leave plenty of time to be in dialogue with everyone here tonight. So this is our team, everyone who is on tonight. We are super excited. I want to thank my team for all the work everyone put in. Beth Graham, who worked directly with the NPU team to get all the logistics down. And this is a good representation of how we work within our office, the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience, but also in partnership with other departments. So we are a mayor's office. We are an executive office of the mayor. There's about 20 mayor's offices, and then we have about 20 operating departments. The Department of City Planning is one of those that we work very closely with. And when we get to our urban agriculture and food systems section, we will definitely talk about that format and how that works. So we've got our deputy CSO, our directors team, we've got our climate and energy associates. We have a new management analyst, which we're super excited about. And then we've got fellows and partners from DCP. And then those who are working very specific to programs like Weatherize ATL, which we will talk about later this evening. So this is us. This is what we focus on. We were officially codified as the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience in the city charter on December 5th, 2022. I remember that because that is my birthday. So it was a very nice birthday gift. That wasn't planned. It just happened to be the last city council meeting of 2022. Our mayor, Andre Dickens, has done a lot of work to prioritize sustainability and climate resilience. He's an engineer. He gets it. Even when we talk about his vision, I talk about how, for me, that really sounds like a vision for environmental justice. He has elevated the Chief Sustainability Officer position back to the mayor's cabinet. So all those 20 plus executive offices and those 20 plus operating departments every Monday morning at 9 a.m., except for when we're not, we're all together working on how to drive our goals forward. And that interdepartmental collaboration is critical to achieving our goals. And so this is what it says about our office in the city charter. But the main thing to focus on is that we are rooted in science-based analysis informed by the community. And so what is sustainability? What is resilience? You heard me mention there are a few hundred definitions of sustainability, multiple definitions of resilience. We can talk about resilience from a climate perspective. We can talk about resilience from a community perspective, an economic perspective. This is what we have settled on as how we define sustainability and resilience. This is really connected to our grounding exercise that J.O. Liu led us through, because when I think about sustainability, I think about the indigenous principle of 7 generations and understanding that the decisions that we make today should sustain us 7+ generations into the future. And so in talking about our work, we have sustainability and how we define that. We have resilience, both on a foundation of environmental justice, the 17 principles of environmental justice. You'll get to talk about what you believe environmental justice means later, all working together to address the inequitable impacts of climate change. And again, all of those things together is how we focus on climate resilience. So even when I say Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience, I'm generally saying or typing sustainability and climate resilience. We want to be really climate forward as we are talking and speaking, as climate and the inequitable impacts of climate that are falling disproportionately on marginalized communities is critically important as we move through these goals. And so even here at the city, you can see our way back in 2012-ish, we had our the power to change. And then 2015, we had our climate action plan. And then 2017, we had Resilient Atlanta. And then 2019, City Council officially adopted Clean Energy Atlanta. And then we had a decarbonization roadmap. What is decarbonization? How do we focus on getting fossil fuels out of our buildings, out of our transportation? And the Atlanta city design as well really spoke to a lot of what we are talking about when we are driving for a more sustainable and a more climate resilient Atlanta. So climate resilient ATL will be the next strategy that we will be developing together. And here we have talked about what climate resilience really means. We know we've got to address these impacts, but we also want to make sure not only that those impacts are not getting worse, but when we do suffer from those impacts, that we are able to bounce back better and achieve conditions that are more equitable, not less, through that recovery. So we've got time for our first question. We've gone through our overview, so we want to hear from you. How do you define sustainability and resilience? And would welcome all of you to start dropping your responses in the chat. And I'm gonna click over so I can see some of those coming in. Local economy, absolutely. I love that that's first, actually, particularly when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about climate resilience, when we talk about the clean energy transition, all of that is rooted in a more fair and just economy. Green infrastructure, community-oriented growth, absolutely. Oh yes, my Wi-Fi must be slow because now they're coming in fast and furious. I love it. Opportunity to survive and thrive. Oh, hey, Brittany. Seeing all these folks that I know in the chat. Thank y'all for being here. So this is great. Keep them coming, particularly as we continue to go throughout this evening. Think about what sustainability and resilience means to you. And next, I will turn it over to my colleague, Deputy Chief Sustainability Officer, John R. Seidel, and our Clean Energy Programs Associate, Michelle Madanye.
Great. I'm going to be talking about Clean Energy Atlanta, which is a vision for 100% clean energy future. This resolution, our clean energy resolution, was passed in 2017 by City Council, and it's a community-wide goal for 100% clean energy for all Atlantans by 2035. So what even is clean energy? It's defined in our clean energy resolution as energy that's derived from these sources below. So wind, solar, hydroelectric, geothermal, biogas, and wave technology sources. And basically what goes under clean energy is renewable. It's a source that won't run out. It's natural and self-replenishing. It's a zero emission source that does not pollute our atmosphere. And also included in that could be energy saved by energy efficiency. So the solar and the hydro are both sources that the pictures are within Georgia, and then the solar is rooftop solar on our Martin Luther King Junior Recreation Center. So yeah, here are our interim targets. So for our next one, which is by 2025 at 30%, we're about halfway there at 15%, but really pushing for 2024 and 2025 to make big impacts. And we really want to, at the city, lead by example for municipal operations. So to really get our operations to 100% clean energy, and then also just build on energy efficiency programs and also to continue to push for action from regulators and utilities. So greenhouse gas emissions, these are gases in Earth's atmosphere that trap heat. And underneath that are some examples of GHGs, and then methane, which is CH4. So like an example of a human activity could be waste decomposition in landfills. So basically rotting waste can release methane. And if you go to our to the chart, the pie chart to the right, our largest emitters are going to be energy. So it's the yellow, orange, and red bars. And then the transportation is the 30%, which is like the medium blue color. And yeah, so greenhouse gas emissions, they lead to global warming and climate change, which warms our planet. The last thing I'm speaking about is our commercial building energy efficiency ordinance. And this is for large properties, commercial and multifamily that are greater than 25,000 square feet. They have to benchmark their electricity, gas, and water usage. And there's also an audit component in that for an energy audit that's on a 10-year cycle. But this is a picture of our Atlanta energy map. So we've been working last couple of years on this, but developing this visual for property owners. And the gray are properties that we still need to work with to get them to submit data. And the other colors are buildings that have submitted data and what their metrics are.
Thanks,
And
Michelle. I appreciate it. And picking up on your point in terms of where our greenhouse gas emissions come from and building energy and transportation being such a high greenhouse gas emitters. It's the city of Atlanta is considered a leader amongst our peers, and we like to think if you can do it in Atlanta, you can do it anywhere. It's great when a city in New York or California has a sustainability, whether that's for buildings, for building performance standards. But when Atlanta does it, especially our southeastern regional cities and counties take notice because it's heavily scalable. So the city of Atlanta was one of the first to have a sustainable building ordinance, which the city leading by example requires all new construction for the city of Atlanta over 5,000 square feet to be LEED Silver certified. And back when it was originally passed, that was considered a leading standard. However, it's the slide Sustainable Infrastructure Updates has updates in the title for a reason. It's because it's not enough to meet the crisis that we see. It's not enough to really move the needle in terms of energy efficiency and clean energy production for our clean energy plan and our climate action plan. And so time for an update because again, the city leads by example, and we want to we want to hold ourselves to the highest standard and hopefully model for other buildings and other private nonprofit building owners, multifamilies to join us. We also have the electric vehicle readiness ordinance. We're one of the first in the whole country to pass this EV readiness ordinance, and what it means is that for all commercial new buildings, as you can see with the little EV readiness chart on the right, for 20% of the electric vehicle, 20% of the parking spots, they have to be EV ready, meaning they have to have the size for wiring. You have to have the electric paneling done. You have to mark which parking spaces are going to have electric vehicle stations in the future. But it's really now we have standardized language for these since they've come out. And really, it's not an EV readiness ordinance. It's really an EV capable ordinance. The city of Atlanta has seen other local governments implement true readiness, which is putting in like a dryer 220-volt plug-in so that you can just plug your level 2 charger in, or have an EV installed. So City of Orlando has 2 to 3% for new construction, commercial building parking lots to actually have to put in EV charging stations for multifamily and for other commercial buildings. And then we also have solar permitting. The city of Atlanta wants to be a leader in terms of when people, whether you're a business, whether you're a resident, wants to put on solar on their rooftop to make it as efficient and as easy as possible. SolSmart is the designation to that benchmarks where we are. We want to redesignate as SolSmart Gold and actually go for Platinum. The next slide goes a little bit, we talked very briefly about electric vehicle infrastructure. This touches on our transportation emissions. The city of Atlanta has really over this year, this over 1 year goal that's really ambitious to really expand our electric vehicle charging, not just for the exploding growth in our fleet and our city staff, but as well as being able to make sure that there's equitable electric vehicle charging access for communities that, as you see in our the city of Atlanta's charging map here, where you don't have a charger for two plus miles, and in order to enjoy the benefits, whether that's clean air, whether that's the lower maintenance and fuel costs of electric vehicles, it's not a chicken and egg scenario. There has to be electric vehicle infrastructure. So over the next 90 days, 20 electric vehicle chargers at City Hall parking deck. Over the next 188, doubling our city-owned EV charging across our city-owned sites, which are also marked in this on this map, as well as future charging stations. And then by 2025, expanding 250 electric vehicle chargers, charger ports across the city of Atlanta. We're especially focusing on low-income, Justice 40, and low charging access communities. And this allows us to be able to continue to electrify our fleet going forward. We just completed a fleet analysis, which looked at the top 100 vehicles that are ready for that were best candidates for EV replacement. Most of them were light duty. Some of them were medium duty. So think light duty is your sedans, crossovers, trucks. Medium duty is your buses and shuttles. Heavy duty is really, really heavy vehicles, big haulers, big fire trucks. But the average predicted lifetime savings was around 45 to 31%, and that's without the IRA incentives. And so going to the next slide, the city of Atlanta also just hosted Electric Vehicle Day for our city employees. And we actually, as part of this, we had ride and drive experiences for our city staff to be able to experience driving in different electric vehicle models, as well as looking at innovative partnerships. So the city of Atlanta has partnered with Hertz to support rental and electric vehicle rideshare opportunities, workforce development opportunities. We're partnered with Atlanta Careers Academy through APS, and we've done really cool curriculum, as well as Hertz actually donated a Chevy Bolt to ACCA to help go through and for the students to actually work on it. Really, I mean, what we're looking at, ARC, in terms of federal funding, because there's a lot out there, we put in an application for CFI round 1. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. It was over a $30 million application. But ARC, our partners, did receive it. And so they are going to be installing 300 to 400 free level 2 chargers over the next 18 months. And we're certainly going to be pushing for a good portion of those to be within the city of Atlanta proper, especially in low charging access communities. We're also taking advantage of direct pay for the first time when we purchase EV chargers and EVs for our fleet, to make sure that we take advantage of that and get that money back. And we're also looking at innovative charging models, looking at our right-of-ways. How can we do right-of-way charging on our streets? How can we work with third parties? If we can't pay up front for it, how can we utilize city properties to be able to host EV charging, but not when we don't have the funds to be able to pay for it, for companies like EnviroSpark or BlockPower or Tesla to be able to use those sites to be able to provide electric vehicle charging. And so it's all hands on deck. Mayor Dickens says it's a group project, and it certainly is to be able to meet all of our ambitious sustainability goals. Also, quickly touching on our Solar Atlanta program, we have 27 installations through our partnership with Cherry Street Energy across our portfolio. Think Parks and Recreation Center. Think we've seen the MLK Aquatic Center. Think Department of Watershed Management Facilities, Public Safety Headquarters, fire stations, all across the board. And now we're expanding to the Atlanta airport. And so as the city of Atlanta continues to expand our solar, how can we think innovatively? We now, through this most recent amendment, are able to take advantage of renewable energy credits, and actually are looking at pathways to sell renewable energy credits captured by these solar panels, and then utilize them to support renewable energy and energy efficiency for our buildings in our community. So I actually have a question, because I didn't want to dive too deep into wonky energy, but wanted to see if anybody knew, on average, how many kilowatt hours are needed to power your standard household in 1 year. Go ahead and put them in the chat. Holy, oh, wow. I can't, that's a lot of zeros, Brooklyn. That is really impressive. Lee, you're right. Around 800 to 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity per month, which totals to about 9,600 to 12,000 kilowatt hours annually. And as part of our Solar Atlanta program, just to put that in context, the city has produced over 200 million kilowatt hours. Oh, sorry, 2 million kilowatt hours, which averages to about 2,000 households years worth of 2,000 households in Atlanta, just as a part of that program, and it's growing. So thank you for y'all's guesses and putting yourselves out there. And with that, I'm going to introduce our Urban Agriculture Director, Giolu. So I'll pass it over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John R. Before I get started, I'm going to put my sunglasses on because, presentations are better with sunglasses, right? And, also before we get started, I think we're going to poll everyone and see if you remember all of the words to the grounding and acknowledgement. Anyone? All right, we'll pass on it. No, great to be here again. Again, my name is Jay Olu Bayowu. I'm the Urban Agriculture and Food Systems Director. I've been at the City of Atlanta, working at the City of Atlanta for about 3.5 years now. It's been great to be a part of this team, and I've been working in urban agriculture and food systems for over a decade. So looking forward to sharing a little bit and, maybe helping some people ideate and think about how this relates to climate and sustainability and resilience. Next. So this is the slide just to show you some quotes from our Mayor Andre Dickens. He is definitely involved, aware, supportive about how we are going to address food insecurity, how we're going to address food justice, how it connects to climate equity and justice. But here's some statistics, right? 1 in 9 Metro Atlantans live with food insecurity. That also includes 1 in 6 children. This was a stat that I was ready to share yesterday if need be. Yesterday, we had the inaugural mayor's first youth town hall. And I will say it was wonderful to hear the youth speaking about and asking questions about everything ranging from personal health, mental health, climate, food, housing. It was wonderful. But this is a statistic that we know exists. And of course, again, Mayor Dickens is on record to show that everybody, every family should have access to healthy food, convenient locations, et cetera. So I am not a person who works alone. There's a urban agriculture and food systems team, and we're working on it in a couple different ways. So speaking of a couple different ways, here is our mission. We are committed to cultivating a resilient, equitable, inclusive, just, and accessible food system for Atlanta. Our vision, ensuring all residents live within a half a mile of fresh, affordable food by 2040. We're also at some point going to even expand that language to include culturally relevant, because we recognize that having access to food and even defining food is important. And then also making sure that, folks are able to celebrate their cultures, their ethnicities, and be able to have access to that, not necessarily have to be relegated to one particular part of town to get a particular type of food. We want people to be able to access it. And in our approach here, we do this in a couple of different ways. This is not an exhaustive list, but just showing some of the different areas that we work in, collaborate in, partner in, and support. So everything ranging from community and neighborhood farms, gardens, food forests, neighborhood food stores, rain gardens, pollinator gardens, compost and carbon collection systems, controlled environment agriculture, which is a growing trend that's been going on for some time. That's where you're growing usually maybe in an indoor environment, can be outdoor, using some level of lighting, and not necessarily soil-based. Community advisory and steering committees. So this is something that we think is extremely important, to not just operate in a place of, thinking that we're the subject matter experts or we've been, hired to represent the entire city of Atlanta, which is true. And also recognizing that the community is where a lot of the wealth of knowledge and experience is. So we want to ensure that we're having community advisory and steering committees. So this is not an exhaustive list of our approach, as I said before, but it is just giving you an idea of how we approach this urban agriculture and food systems work. This is a really good slide, and I definitely want to give a shout out to Chandra on the image for this. But sustainability, climate resilience, and food. Food security is a standard for evaluating climate resilience. You will see that in USDA, EPA, United Nations. There are several other organizations internationally, nationally, and locally who do measure food security and align that with climate resilience. Wasted food is actually the largest category of waste in Georgia landfills. Half of the wasted food in Georgia comes from the Atlanta metro area. So not solely the city of Atlanta, but definitely the metro Atlanta area. For those who may not know, well, it's actually next. Rotting food produces methane, which is a greenhouse gas worse than carbon dioxide. So, as you see in this picture, there's a lot of, some of this looks like things that actually could probably be edible, of course. Others, of course, may be decomposed a little bit, not necessarily something you'd want to serve, but this is one of the worst things that we want. We don't want to continue to contribute food, wasted food that's spoiled, or just waste in general to the landfill. We'll talk about it in a moment, but what we'd like to do is to be able to recover that food, ideally while it's still edible, get it to other places in a redistribution type of way, and then, lasting, getting it into the soil, which is composting and organics recycling. So speaking of that, the Atlanta phases of local food, you will see diagrams like this. This is not, this diagram here is something that is kind of common. You'll see it if you do a Google search, you'll find something similar. So, we look at it from a clockwise way. If you want to go around from right to left, some people will start with recycling and composting, because we know that for any kind of healthy, nutritious food, you actually need to have healthy, nutritious soil. But for sake of here, we'll start with production. So, we have farmers in the city of Atlanta. There are approximately a little over 20 farms that we have on our Fresh Food Access map, that you can see where people are farming. Not to talk with folks who are doing farming that just may not be registered, or we just may not be aware of. There are a lot of community gardens. There are people who are growing on their balconies, front yards, backyards, side yards, rooftops, etc. So production is where it is, right? We want to ensure that we're continuing to grow food. I like to say, grow something, know your farmer, grow some food. So we go from production, there's processing as well. When that food, besides eating it just straight from the plant in its original state, but what happens next? How do we turn apples into apple butter? How do we turn strawberries into strawberry jam? How do we turn tomatoes into salsa? Things of that nature. Aggregation and distribution. So the food's been produced, now it's been processed, and now it is getting to different places. This is another way, and actually this whole wheel are areas where you can think about ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. from the packaging of different things, also to the transportation of different materials, the distribution of it, all of that, and even how we cook our food. So then you've got the aggregation distribution. Consumption is where a lot of us, right, kind of interact with food at a very maybe a more regular pace. How are we eating? Where are we eating? At home, in a restaurant, at a pantry, you know, things of that nature. And then recovery and redistribution. Sorry, that's one of the comments. Recovery and redistribution, as I said, before we get to the compost and organics recycling, there are a lot of organizations within the city of Atlanta, some of them who have been institutions for 30 plus years, some who've been created more recently in response to the COVID pandemic and other emergencies that are here to actually recover food before it gets wasted and redistributed, of course, in good condition, safe condition, so that we're not putting a lot of food into the landfills. And then last but not least, or the beginning for some people, the recycling and composting. Another way that we're able to help the environment is by sequestering carbon. So by putting those food products into compost piles, creating a compost material, and it then becomes an amendment, we're actually able to sequester carbon in that process. And then by putting compost back in the soil, which is the best form of amendment or fertilizer, if you will, that also is bringing carbon back into the soil. So this is just a way to look at our local food phases. And again, we do work in all of these areas, and we partner with a lot of folks and support a lot of folks in these areas. This slide, you know, there are a couple of different logos on here. Again, these are some of the big kind of buckets, if you will, of where some of our work is. So Atlanta is urban agriculture in Atlanta. That was probably coined around 2015 or so. So that is, you may have heard of Atlanta. Our website is atlanta.org or atlanta.com. But there you can kind of keep up with a variety of things and see what's going on. Atlanta Grown is a program that we have on the team, and the team is the Urban Agriculture and Food Systems team. This is about business development, increasing the number of markets and opportunities, connecting folks in the urban ag and food system space or businesses with markets, whether that's you as your household, your community, restaurants. There's some branding in there and convenings and meetings. Food Matters, Food Waste in Cities. Again, we're looking at that food recovery, redistribution, also looking at the composting. So Food Matters is actually a program through the National Resource Defense Council, NRDC. We were a city that went through some of their programming and some of their reports and trainings. And we continue to still uphold and uplift what we've learned from Food Matters. And we're going to actually look to be in another cohort as well. Grows a Lot is one of our really popular programs where we have underutilized and vacant city properties that we then make available to community members to start a community garden or a community farm. Pollinate Atlanta, it's kind of a term right now, but it's basically about pollinators. 2 out of every 3 bites of food that you eat is made possible through pollination, butterflies, bees, bats, birds, a whole variety of other insects. So pollinators are extremely important. They're beautiful aesthetically. They have mental health benefits and physical benefits, and can be beneficial when you grow them. And then also they're very important for us to be able to eat. And trees are great pollinators. We have the Urban Food Forest of Browns Mill, which is the largest public food forest in the United States of America at 7.1 acres. And then we also have a wonderful site called the Outdoor Activity Center, which is stewarded by West Atlanta Watershed Alliance, WAWA. That is a 20+ acre site with an old growth forest that we're continuing to work with them and establishing that as a food forest. And then just one example of a partner or organization we work with, Truly Living Well Center for Natural Urban Agriculture has a community composting lab. So we've been partnering with Truly Living Well over the years. Full disclosure, I trained as a farmer at Truly Living Well in 2013 for 6 months, and I also worked there for 2 years. So definitely one of my alma maters. But this is an extremely important project in community composting. It's one of the larger scale community composters you'll see in the city of Atlanta. And it's a place where you can literally drive there, pull up, learn about what's happening, drop off your materials. Sometimes you can purchase compost. It's a really engaging environment, and that's led by Think Green Inc. and Truly Living Well. So kind of in closing here for this section, Atlanta's urban agriculture and food systems work is climate smart and resilient. So the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, They define climate smart goals as increased, excuse me, one more backward. Yeah, thank you. Increased productivity, so intensifying and growing more, enhanced resilience, adapting to climate change, reduced emissions, mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. And our work is aligned with these goals. We work to increase food security, equity, and justice while upholding techniques such as conservation tillage, cover cropping, nutrient management, agroforestry, composting, and more. So hope you learned a little bit about urban agriculture and food systems, and look forward to staying connected with y'all. Stay tuned for more. And I know that Chandra is next on in line.
Thanks so much, J.O. We definitely had some good questions going in the chat. John R.'s been keeping up with some of those around methane, and a question about Groundworks Atlanta and the partnership with Atlanta. So I know you'll catch up on those. So great in the chat. So now we're going to focus back on a city built for the future. And as I mentioned, that is one of the mayor's 4 pillars of his Moving Atlanta Forward agenda, and officially where sustainability and climate resilience efforts sits. But as I mentioned, we show up across everything, right? Sustainability, acting on climate, and actually urban agriculture and food systems officially, again, sits in a city of opportunity for all. So really appreciate J.O. making the connection to our local food economy and climate resilience and acting on climate. So a few of the programs that we have open that are helping our residents move the city forward in a sustainable manner and in an equitable manner that's going to help us be more climate resilient is our Weatherize ATL program. We're super excited about this pilot program that is aiming to reduce energy burden on Atlanta's most energy burdened households. What is energy burden? How much you pay on your utility bills every month. So the higher your bills related to a household income, the higher your energy burden. City of Atlanta, Atlanta proper, depending on which data set you may be looking at, is either in the top 3 or 5 for highest energy burdens in the nation. And we also know, related to some mapping and a lot of research that's been done over the last few years, that we have 6 to 8 NPUs in South and West and Southwest Atlanta that experience energy burdens that are sometimes 3, 5 plus times higher than NPUs in neighborhoods north of I-20, let's say. So Weatherize ATL was meant to address energy burden and support the mayor's goal to reduce energy burden on 10% of most energy burdened households. We have a number of partners: National Association of Minority Contractors, GreenLink Analytics, which has been helping us with the mapping, Revalue, who's been focused on the actual audits and retrofits of the home, and Sustainable Georgia Futures has been out for the past 8 months knocking on doors. They've knocked on over 5,000 doors. We've got over 400 surveys, and now we're working with those surveys to see if those folks that answered the surveys can actually be a homeowner, officially a homeowner, and meet income requirements to be pulled into that program. So super excited. Stay tuned for more updates on Weatherize. Another program that we have for residents that we are partnering on is our Georgia Bright program. This is offering another solution to try to get more solar on more houses across the city of Atlanta. Georgia Bright, our goal in partnership with our friends in Savannah, Georgia, and a few others, municipalities and nonprofits across the state, and our partner Capital Good Fund, have a goal to install solar on 200 homes across Georgia and we are focused on homes that are making $100,000 or less a year. That includes a lot of City of Atlanta employees. When we were presenting, when Deputy Seidel and I were presenting this program to the mayor's cabinet, the mayor stepped up and said, hey, that's a lot of our City of Atlanta employees. How do we get the word out? So we'll actually be doing a webinar on the Georgia Bright opportunity just for our employees, and Capital Good Fund and partners of the Georgia Bright program are looking to connect with your NPU. So if you are interested in having the Capital Good Fund and Georgia Bright team and maybe some of the solar installers come talk to your NPU or give you a brief presentation, let us know. We'd be happy to connect you with them. And so let's talk about federal funding. John R. mentioned IRA. We're trying to do better with our acronyms. There are so many that you can fall into. And I did drop a link for the Inflation Reduction Act as I wave to get the lights back on in the room that I am in. The Inflation Reduction Act is passed by the Biden administration. It is historic climate legislation. And so there are a lot of opportunities for us to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act at the city. But there are also a lot of opportunities for you as residents and consumers to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act. There are tax credits on electric vehicles. I lived without a car for about 10 years. And when I had to get a car, I got an electric vehicle and I got a discount off the sticker price and a tax credit. So something else that will be rolling out this year is the Home Energy Rebate Program that's going to be run by our state energy agency. So definitely stay tuned for that. We will continue to be supporting a lot of education on those efforts as well. And we are super excited to be one of 25 cities selected for the Bloomberg American Sustainable Cities Challenge. Some of you may have heard about 2 years ago, there was another 3-year challenge called the American Cities Climate Challenge. There's 3 C's there. And this is sort of a part 2 of that. And what's unique and important about this challenge at this moment is that it is specifically focused on addressing the 2 most pressing issues of our time. 1 is climate change, and 2 is the racial wealth gap. So we are super excited to have 3 years of technical assistance dedicated to the City of Atlanta. We will have an innovation team. This will be a 2 to 3 person team that will be working with the city on ways to innovate around programming for the city as a local government. So big C, City of Atlanta, and also small C, the ATL. So we will be looking to continue to engage residents and our community-based organization partners, like some of those that work with us on Georgia Bright, some of those that work with us on Weatherize, and some of those that work with us through our urban ag and food systems and Atlanta programs, all coming together to help us generate new ideas and push forward while being able to leverage some of this technical assistance that we will have access to over the next 3 years. And before we wrap up, we're going to get to Q&A. We've got one more question. With everything that we have talked about today, and as many times as we have spoken about how important environmental justice is to our sustainability and climate resilience goals, drop it in the chat. What does environmental justice mean to you? I'm really looking forward to the feedback on this question. The chat's been hot. I love it. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Beth Graham.
Thank you, Chandra. Yes, the chat has been hot. Thank you for the engagement in the chat. And now we are going to talk you through ways to be actively engaged. As we have said throughout the presentation this evening, Mayor Andre Dickens says, moving Atlanta forward is a group project. And so here are ways for you to become engaged. As we continue to advance the goals or developing the City of Atlanta's new climate action and resilience plan, we're going to ask you to scan this QR code once you receive the presentation for you to share your feedback and inform the plan development. Then we have the next up. As we advance the city's 100%, the city's goal of 100% clean energy for 100% of Atlantans, we have the work of the Clean Energy Advisory Board, which is a 26-member board appointed by Mayor Andre Dickens. It was one of the things that were first accomplished when I joined the city of Atlanta back in 2023. Once you receive the presentation, we invite you to scan this QR code to be part of the resource network. The Clean Energy Advisory Board has 4 working groups, and we invite you to join to be able to advance that work and share your insight. Lastly, as Jayolu walked you to the city's goals to achieve access to fresh food, affordable food within a half mile by 2040, here's an opportunity for you to be able to find where those food sources are located throughout the city by utilizing the Fresh Food Access Map. With that, we are going to transition. I think the next slide opens us up for Q&A. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Samantha, who will help us walk through this process.
Hey, everyone. So if you have a question that was not answered in the chat, we're going to ask that you raise your hand. Again, you do that by clicking on reactions and clicking on the raise hand bar, and then we will acknowledge you based on the order that you are received. Ms. Colette?
Oh, wow, that was so quick. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you. I am, one of the things that we talked about is the energy burden and the impacts of climate change on health and our energy bills. And we really feel that in English Avenue, Vine City, which is a brownfield site. So as part of the cleanup, the EPA has been cutting down our tree canopy. We're already at 20%. So by the time the EPA finishes, we'll be double that. So when I looked at the number of kilowatts that we use, that is increasing. Are there any plans to work with the EPA to help save the canopy or preserve as much of it as they can, or at the very least, when they plant trees, to plant faster growing trees? Because for the trees that they cut down when they replant it, it'll take 25 years at a minimum for those trees to mature.
Thank you for that question, Colette, and bringing that up. We just recently started having check-in meetings with EPA about that project. So our first meeting with them was about 3 weeks ago. We've had one upcoming internal specific meeting about that between my office, Parks and Rec, and City Planning, who manages our tree protection ordinance, et cetera. So I appreciate you flagging that. It's definitely a priority concern for us as well.
Ms. Alvarado?
What I was wanting to ask about, you said about the sustainable solar panels and Georgia giving all that. I wanted to ask about the storage, the battery storage. How is that addressed? Because I know that it has to be a part of it, and I never see that when I ask them, they don't understand. Tell me.
John R., you want to jump in on that one?
Absolutely. And there was actually a similar question. Sorry about that, camera off. Similar question within the chat. I put an answer directly from the website. from Georgia Bright and from our partners at Capital Good Fund. But the solar panels are done so that you don't have to, it's a lease. So instead of having to pay upfront, you enter into a lease with this nonprofit CDFI Capital Good Fund. They're able to take advantage of the federal tax credits. They're able to take advantage of other federal resources that are out there. There's about to be an announcement from the Environmental Protection Agency, because I'm trying to watch my acronyms, for a $250 million solar for all. And this is it's a $7 billion fund, but $250 million for Georgia. And that can continue to help support low median income solar and battery programs. So I would say if you want more information.
Okay, so you're telling me that you would have to lease it, and you won't have your own solar panels. So if you get extended amount of energy that in some places they can sell back to the electric companies, will we have any control with that?
So it depends if you live in Georgia Power territory. That's what we're most used to here in the city of Atlanta. Unfortunately, and we've engaged with the regulators that regulate Georgia Power. It's called the Public Service Commission in these formal hearings. Not going to get too deep into it, but the city of Atlanta has partnered with other local governments who share 100% clean energy ambitions. And unfortunately, when you put if you produce so much energy and it goes back on the grid, Georgia Power will pretty much pay you a fourth to a third what they're going to be reselling that energy to your neighbor at. And so when you take a look at our 27 municipal solar projects through Solar Atlanta, those are all behind the meter. So none of those installations produce so much energy that they go back onto the grid. And because
they're behind meters. Okay. That's right.
That's correct.
You won't own them. You would have to lease them through a third party. I got you. Okay.
But the batteries allow you to be able to produce, like, to have a larger installation, where the more you put on your roof, the more economies of scale that you have in terms of payback. And the more you're able to produce clean energy for your household. And of course, batteries are getting more and more popular in terms of outages. And so when Georgia Bright was first launched, it was really focused on solar. But now, because the Inflation Reduction Act has included batteries that, if they are put on with solar, you can take advantage of those incentives. And so that's why it's a part of the program. And right around 67% of the 24 participants thus far who've signed a lease have also signed a lease to include batteries. And so, yeah, thank you so much for the question. And feel free if you have any other
reach out to questions. You. I will.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Because I'm with Eco Action, and the community definitely wants to know.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of these things that I can do as an individual, growing my own food, composting my kitchen waste, putting solar panels on my roof, require a substantial footprint in terms of land area. And that then is sort of counter to this goal of increasing the density of the city. So if I lived in a high-rise apartment, there'd be no place for me to compost. I wouldn't have a roof because there'd be somebody living above me, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, do you consider the trade-offs there of increased density versus the inability to do these things?
Happy to, have our team chime in. The clean energy transition is all about trade-offs. I will say, particularly in the oppressive regulatory environment which we are in Georgia. So I know that JOLU will have solutions for composting. If you're living in a multi-family building, recycling is tough as well. We have a multi-family recycling ordinance. There are a number of great examples of multi-family facilities that are able to use solar, where residents are able to benefit from that and developers are able to benefit from that, just not here in Georgia. So on those things, those kinds of questions, I encourage you and everyone here to reach out to your public service commissioners, the elected officials who make the decisions about how much you pay every line item you see on your utility bill. And for many of the things that we are talking about that many of our neighbors and other states are able to do that we are not.
Yeah. And this is Jay Olu again, Urban Ag and Food Systems Director. It's a great question. And I think one of the things about food and food systems in general is sometimes it gets siloed in its own area, whereas actually food and the discussion of food should be connected to transportation, should be connected to housing, should be connected to parks and recreation, right? So I think it's important, kind of going along with what Chandra said, to be in touch with your elected officials, be in touch with the different departments and say, hey, we'd like to see more food in parks, or hey, what is the city doing as far as controlled environment growing, things of that nature. Because with the increased density, quite frankly, we're going to need more food as well. And we recognize that food comes from a variety of places. And it's not that 100% of everything has to be grown locally. And at the same time, I think all of us probably, at least most of us, can say that during the early years of the COVID pandemic, you experienced at least one time where you went to the grocery store and there was nothing there, or at least, or a minimum, not what you wanted there, right? So local food systems are extremely important for sustainability, climate resilience, et cetera. And the way you can do that is to, have your voice heard. Lastly, I'll say that currently the city is doing Plan A, Comprehensive Development Plan, throughout the city of Atlanta. So I don't have the website at the moment, but I think that's a great opportunity for folks to express what they would like the future of the city to be and look like.
That website is atlantaforall.com. Williams.
Thank you. Good evening. I have two questions. Number one, with regards to the energy and the Georgia Power bills, is the city speaking with Georgia Power with regard to Plant Vogtle, the nuclear plant, because Unit 3 at the plant has come online and they said it's like servicing, 20% of Georgia. But Unit 4, there was an article, I believe it was today or yesterday, that's supposed to come online between April and June of this year. And that project was supposed to is supposed to substantially have a positive impact on the power bills of residents. So since nuclear is considered like zero emission clean energy, have you guys put that in so that's a sustainable project that the city can benefit from and the residents? Because Georgia Power every other year in the legislature, they come up with a rate increase that is always approved. So, not only are they passing costs to us, but it doesn't get better. It just keeps getting worse and they get approved every time. So is the city going to, go in and kind of say, hey, we need to see the benefits for our residents and make this sustainable for this, for this power plant, to help with the programs that you were just mentioning? That's question number one. So I'll let you answer that.
That's a great complex question, Tanya. I'll answer as simply as possible. One, the city's energy mix is Georgia Power's energy mix. So we are a Georgia Power customer. We're actually the largest Georgia Power customer in the state, thanks to the airport. So that's one. So when we talk about our 100% clean energy goal, and Michelle Madanier can probably drop the link in the chat, we are looking at the Georgia Power energy mix. So that's one thing to remember. So our three primary strategies for reaching clean energy are: one, to make our buildings as efficient as possible, reducing our energy consumption. Two, is to procure more renewable energy. That's why our Solar Atlanta program that John R. talked about is so important. And then three, we'll have to buy some renewable energy credits. We're looking for innovative ways to do that, where we are actually able to sell based on what we're producing from our solar that we can reinvest back into projects. So just wanted to give that overview of Georgia Power and where the city's energy comes from. Two, we are actively engaged at the Public Service Commission. So the city started formally intervening in the regulatory process at the Public Service Commission back in 2019. This is generally a process called the Integrated Resource Plan that happens every 3 years. This is when Georgia Power presents its 20-year plan for meeting its energy needs, but they come back to the commission all the time, particularly related to Plant Vogtle, as you mentioned. So I will just let you know that we are there intervening, and not just alone as the city of Atlanta. We do this in partnership with our Georgia Local Governments Coalition, which includes Atlanta, Savannah, City of Decatur, Athens, Clarke County, and DeKalb County. So we all work together on that. And so that's what we are able to do from the city perspective, obviously focus on our energy needs as a city, but also energy affordability for residents. So I'll encourage you again, if you've never been to the Public Service Commission to make public comment, if you never reached out to your Public Service Commissioner, start doing that today.
Okay, my second part of my question was, it kind of piggybacks on Colette. She spoke about the EPA and English Avenue and Vine City, and primarily in English Avenue, doing the mitigation or remediation. And so you mentioned that you guys have had your first meeting with the EPA. And I guess my ask would be from on your next meeting to put onto your agenda that because the EPA, what they're doing is, as Colette said, it makes it easier for them to remediate the soil when they just, cut down and remove the trees. But many residents, especially like some of the older ones, they're happy that these large trees are removed because they're always scared that they are going to fall or limbs are going to fall on their house or the tree itself. However, what's happening is that the EPA, in their budget, they've already been allocated money for tree replacement. And it's not a 1-for-1, because when I say trees, I mean, these are trees that are probably 8 to 10, some of them 8 to 10 feet in diameter, if not more. I mean, they're very, very old, very, very large trees. And so when you take down a tree, just in this conversation, clean energy, you just increased that person's electric bill in the summertime in Georgia, because there is no shade now. And so their house is probably, 10 to 15 degrees hotter, and they have to use more power. But with regard to the EPA, and what I would like to see and ask that you put on your next agenda when you speak with them, is that they are required to replace trees that they take, and that they retroactively go back to the people that they have finished and remediated their lead in their yards, and go back and replace the trees, because they could put understory trees, mid-story trees. So those are going to be trees that you can put on.
Miss Tanya.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Do you have a question?
Okay. So my question, I'm sorry, Leah. I'm sorry. So my question is, on your next agenda, could you bring that up and require them to retroactively plant those types of trees and replace, because the neighborhood is really starting to look bare. That's one. And then number two, could you actually make that a requirement, and then require them to give a pamphlet of some sort to these people, because they're taking the trees and then just leaving the neighborhood bare. So sorry, I didn't mean to get long-winded, but that's the question. Can that be a requisite on your agenda before your next meeting, and then come back with deliverables to the community and the MPU with what was said and work towards that becoming a reality. Period. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Leah.
Be happy for you to email us at sustainabilityandresilience@atlantanga.gov. So we have a record of that we can share with our other departments that are also working on this topic.
Okay, can you put that in the chat? Is it in the chat?
We'll drop it again, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Moore.
Thank you. So, like, back to the EPA thing. My question is, so I know you guys are meeting with them. Is Lindsay Street Park one of the things that maybe, because the thing that freaks me out is how they clean Lindsay Street Park. And can we, whenever that gets into the mix, can we have like a real plan how we do it so we don't clear cut Lindsay Street Park?
Thank you for bringing that up. I know Parks and Recreation is in that group of people that we have been meeting with. Lindsay Street has definitely been a part of that conversation. Again, I'm happy to help filter back to that group. And then I think we definitely want to understand, I'd like to better understand how EPA is communicating back to the community and the park and the Friends group.
I call them every week. I call Ron Tolliver every single week, every other week. I'm just afraid that one day I'm going to go out there and they're going to start hacking it down. And we really want to see if we can do some alternate remediation.
Okay, I want to point out to everybody that our golden rule for these classes is that all questions have to be relevant to course content. We usually also add that they should be beneficial to the entire class. We don't want to focus on one neighborhood. I also want to point out that my colleagues in the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience are public servants. That means if you email them, they're required to respond to your emails. That means if you call them, and I know them, they don't even have to be required. They'll respond regardless. They'll answer your calls, they'll return your calls, they'll respond to your emails. So don't feel like you have to come to this class to get all your questions answered about what's going on in your neighborhood. You don't. You can email them at any time. You can call them at any time. Let's get some more questions going for the good of the class. Mr. Scott?
Hello. Thank you. I hope my question is relevant. It may not be, but
I'll let you know if it's not.
All right, I'm gonna try to make it quick. I have a homestead and I'm working to start my own garden at home. And I have a bunch of trees on my lot that I want cleared. And I know there's like a tree protection ordinance in the city of Atlanta. Do you know what the incentives are for that? Like for replanting trees that are cut down?
That actually falls in our department, in the Department of City Planning. I suggest you call the Office of Buildings, and I'll ask someone from my team to drop the phone number in the chat. It's 404-330-6150. 404-330-6150. That's in the Office of Buildings in the Arborist Division.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Ms. Holliday?
Well, I know we've talked a lot about trees so far, but I want to say that I would love to see the Office of Sustainability actually take a more active role, looking at the fact that trees play such a critical role in terms of what we need to do in terms of climate protection. It takes 20 to 30 years for a tree to actually provide a good benefit environmentally. And as a result, all these trees we go out planting they're good, but they're only going to play a role in 20 or 30 years. Trees have been shown to have a health benefit, to have a heat reduction benefit. They reduce utility costs. They provide mental health benefits. And I've even read a study from an epidemiologist talking about trees providing a reduction in gun violence. So all of the things we're looking at, we need to look at trees not as an aesthetic. It's not that they look pretty in the northeastern side of town, which I live in. as an aesthetic thing, but they provide a benefit across frankly, all of Atlanta, all of the country, in terms of really significant future benefits. Like, put bluntly, do we want to breathe? Do we want to let our grandchildren breathe? Do we want to provide a world for them that is something that they can live in? So, not a question. Sorry about that, Leah, but just a comment. Well, I guess a question. What role should the Office of Sustainability be providing in this effort?
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Support. We all agree over here with in my office with everything that you said. Tree canopy and tree canopy recommendations have been present in, if not all, but at least our most recent plans. And we work directly with our Department of City Planning. We work very closely with our senior arborist and the tree planning commission, who lead the city's work on developing our tree protection ordinances and other items. So we're working together. We agree with you. It will certainly be a component of our climate resilience action plan that we are developing, particularly as it relates to urban heat islands and mitigating extreme heat. So we have a survey for that, and Beth will drop that link again in the chat, and look forward to your feedback there.
So if we've been having, let's say, less than positive responses in terms of input, are you a good resource for that?
I'm hearing you right now. I think you sound very well versed in all the places that you need to get input and keep pushing this forward.
Ms. Ward? Tansy, you there? All right, we may have lost Tansy. Are there any other questions? I see there were, Ms. Dobson.
Hello, I live in Peachtree Hills in South Buckhead, and I am asking for the role of the sustainability department in this battle with styrofoam snow, which there is a current ordinance against. Councilman Faroki passed it in November of 2023, but our neighborhoods seeing significant styrofoam snow, which means basically little styrofoam pellets that are going all over our neighborhoods. And the reason that I believe this is pertinent to everyone in the class is because it's getting into our waterways. It's getting into Peachtree Creek, which channels into Chattahoochee, which flows to South Atlanta, as well as other tributaries all across the area. I've been working for over 4 months now, trying to get this cease and assist on this practice that is conditioning our park and our soils and our streets and our water runoffs and all of that. So my question is the Office of Sustainability aware of this issue? And if so, what is their role in trying to get the ordinance enforced in regards to making developers and builders accountable?
I was not as aware of this, Laura. When you mentioned it, I think I remember hearing something about it, but I definitely appreciate the flag and am happy to follow up with Councilmember Faroki on what the status is.
Okay, thank you. In this case, Councilman Faroki, the ordinance was passed unanimously by City Council. It is in effect, supposed to be in effect, but the enforcement of it has been a challenge, and has been it. So I appreciate you reaching out to him. Our council people working on trying to figure it out, as well as Councilman Shook and Councilperson Norwood. So we're very frustrated. It is contained our neighborhood, and it is impossible to clean up. It is the size of birdseed. So this is an in perpetuity contamination of our neighborhood and water and soil. So I appreciate you.
Much, Laura.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, your hand was up and now it's down. Did you have a question?
Peace, y'all. I was kind of thinking not to ask, but just in case. What does the Office of Sustainability suggest that we as NPU leaders do in terms of educating our community on all the information that you've given us? Because it's definitely been a lot. I know because I've been working with y'all. All y'all. So with that, I kind of ask on behalf of everybody, how can we as NPU leaders better disseminate this information that you have given us so that we can directly engage the key things that are going on with our areas and attach them properly to you all?
Good evening, Khalifa. I think I will turn that question back to you. As a Clean Energy Advisory Board member and a founding member of the NPU Community Leaders Group that was specifically formed to bring information from the Clean Energy Advisory Board meetings back to community, what has worked? Maybe let's start there. And then maybe what hasn't worked that we can focus on to do better.
I appreciate that, Big Sis. All right. So with that, one, have the session again, but also two, having it specifically with each NPU. It's a lot. It is a lot. I saw the Blue Roof fact, but I know it's a lot. But the fact that we've been working on it this long and the questions are still out there. And in that frustration of that is why I say that. We'll probably have to be a special meeting of some sort external to the actual NPU meetings, but ultimately, this is what the purpose of the NPU universities are for. And I would have hoped it would have been like 100 that would have been in here. So working something out between the NPU universities and actual coming to the NPU meetings is key. Also, a further pushing of Weatherize. I know we were really working on getting the Weatherize to do a lot of the campaigning in our most energy burden communities, but I saw they're started stretching to the other NPUs now. H being one of them as well, which I represent. But tackling the Weatherize program and stretching it out. Tagging in our multiple partners and community organizations to do the work, whether it be a church or the schools. I also say a tag in the APS. A lot of the people who would benefit from the energy burden are those who would be most willing to be engaged because they're trying to pay bills to feed themselves and their children. APS is one partner which I don't think we've really been able to tap on too strongly, and they definitely should be pulled into this conversation and do more work in it, especially being they are a large property owner in the city of Atlanta.
Mr. Lee, do you have another question?
You said what? No, she asked me.
Do you have another question?
No, did I have another question? No, she asked me a question to give an answer. So I was going to end on APS because me and APS, we're doing our best to get better in our relationship. But that's really just the key thing in terms of how we're moving about with all the things we're talking about when it comes to the tree conversation and energy conversation, and all the other sustainable things that we're moving along with that. So yeah, if there's anything else, I would definitely appreciate the rest of the team to be able to tag in, because I know for sure everybody's gonna be emailing you guys up because we have a lot to work on. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you for your service and leadership, Mr. Lee. And we'll look forward to that next NPU leaders meeting. So maybe we can dig down into some of these issues and help but focus in on some things because it is a lot. And so if we need to, reestablish our meeting series that you all were hosting, we're at the ready to do that.
I just want to point out, there's no one at the city that I'm aware of that feels more passionately about engagement and getting good information in the hands of the residents, the people, the stakeholders. We meaning the city of Atlanta, the Department of City Planning, my team, we really do work hard to get information out. But at the end of the day, people seek information that they believe is important. We produce 40 something classes a year. Some of them have 200 people, some of them have 20, but it really is based on what folks, well, one had 200 people. I think on average, the average attendance for these classes is 48, Sam. Is that about right? Is it still 48?
Last year, yes. This year, we've been averaging about 70.
About 70. Okay. So with 65 folks in the room now, it's really not, granted, it's not the 500,000 people that live in the city, but it's still a pretty decent number, I think, for people who, may have worked all day today, have kids and other things to do. Don't be discouraged by the numbers. I certainly am not. I think this is a pretty good number of folks that demonstrated interest, especially for a first-time class. So, well, I'm encouraged by the turnout personally. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any hands going once. If you have a question, the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, going once, going twice. All righty. Without further ado, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to ask Sam to close us out. Before she does that, I want to give a special thank you to Chandra and team, to all of you that contributed to the instruction tonight. I appreciate you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing such a wealth of knowledge with everyone. Oh, that's a great point, I'd say. Thank you. Thank you for leaving that in the chat. For those that are not able to attend our classes, almost all of them stream virtually on Facebook, and almost all of them are uploaded onto YouTube. And you can go to YouTube, NPU Atlanta, find the class that you're interested in, grab that link and send it to anybody that you think should be watching the class. So that is, I strongly encourage you to do that as well. Send this link to anybody that you think should have been here tonight and wasn't. All right. Thank you again, Chandra and team, and thank you to all of you who are here with us tonight. And Sam is going to take it from here.
Thanks, everyone. Leah?
Sam, you're on mute.
I am just talking to myself. Sorry, y'all. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight and participating. Our upcoming courses for NPU University, you can actually see on the screen. We have about 6 courses. Oh, not next month. We have NPU 101, which is next week. Our Introduction to Invest Atlanta is following. And then we have a new class to our series. It is actually an in-person course, so there are limited slots. The registration is open for that course, and if you are interested in registering for our lived experience, exploring housing affordability through experiential learning set at 5 times fast. That is on a Thursday, May 9th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in person. Wait a minute. And if anyone wants to take a screenshot of this page to find out about our courses, as well as visit npuatlanta.org, you can do that as well. And then our next community open house for Plan A is Tuesday, April 9th at Trinity Presbyterian Church. I'm going to leave the screen up a little bit for anyone that wants to scan that code and go ahead and register because you would like to participate in our Plan A process. And if you want to know anything about NPU, all things NPU, Neighborhood Planning Units, as we are celebrating 50 years of Neighborhood Planning Units, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at NPU Atlanta, on Nextdoor at City of Atlanta Neighborhood Planning Units, and as Ade has placed in our chat, all of our videos can be found on NPU Atlanta on YouTube. All of that said, good night, everyone. And also check your emails. There's an evaluation for this course. We also put it in the chat as well. Please, 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 please complete those evaluations. It will take you less than 5 minutes. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.
Great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good job, y'all.
Once.